Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Yep, check out our podcast below in the description as well.
Also, it's kickoff week. So how about a Tito's kickoff, John? Doesn't that look good?
Yep, make a Tito's soda water and put a little OJ in there as well.
Since it's week one, with just some of the best storylines that we see ahead this week in the NFL, we'll get to some of the lines because the Niners right now, as we record this on Sunday afternoon, are them and the Bears and the Bucks are the biggest favorite. Them and the Rams and the Bucks are the biggest favorites at 7.5 points, and obviously it's a big week from a injury standpoint just to find out Trey Lance's finger and what his status is. But week one is here. Let's go through some of the best storylines we like just for this week, things we're looking forward to, because I remember several weeks ago we looked at week one. I think maybe it was 2 weeks after the preseason ended, and I think you could make the case that there's one game that doesn't interest you. Shouldn't it? I mean, maybe you could find something. But for me, when I look at the schedule, there's only one kind of game that I could go the whole day without seeing a highlight and wouldn't miss it. That's it. One game.
See, I disagree with you on this game because I have another game that I wouldn't watch. I'd watch this game over the other game.
Okay, so the game that I find I could skip, you just tell me that, you just give me the box score and the score at the end, and I'll know what happened, is Broncos-Giants. That's the game. Now, I do think you could acknowledge, because we've talked about this, the Broncos have some talent. Surtain now. No, not Surtain.
Yeah, no, they got
Surtain.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy, good defense. Like, maybe they'll be solid. But, you know, people, this whole, like, the Giants are going to be a good thing that's been coming from somewhere for the last 4 months. I don't know. I would say that's the game you can
remember, they missed the playoffs last year. They missed the playoffs because Sudfeld came in. And then you realize, oh, yeah, they went 5-11 or something. You're like, yeah, no shit, you sucked.
What game would you have?
To me, the Texans and the Jags. Like, I mean, just show me the score. Like, I don't care. That is
crazy.
A terrible game, Guy. Texans
Trevor
and the
Lawrence,
Jags. You
Urban
like
Meyer?
that game more than the Broncos and the Giants?
Tell me who you are just fired up to watch Broncos Giants.
Well, it's just Saquon Barkley, Von Miller. There's like star people in that game. The Texans.
I know what that looks like. I don't know what Trevor Lawrence in the NFL looks like. Give me that.
Again, but you're gonna watch them against the Texans like that. You're talking. I mean, those two teams might combine for 4 wins.
That's okay. I just want to see Trevor Lawrence play an NFL game. We've been talking about this guy for 3.5 years being an NFL player. And Urban, I watched him the other night. The misery on his face. Like, is this gonna last? I thought he should come to the NFL. Jags, hire him. But
I'm not disagreeing in your Broncos-Giants game. I mean, that game, I'm not very interested in it, but I just think they're at worst equals. Like, I think that game is pretty bad. I mean, the Texans are just a laughingstock. They're going to feel like watching Detroit Tiger baseball or something. Like, you're going to be turned off just the moment you see them on your screen, as everyone will. And immediately
not if it's
change the channel.
Not if it's Trevor. No, to me, again, like, this goes back to my pattern when it comes to the preseason. I am more interested early in a football season in seeing the people that we haven't seen yet than seeing Saquon Barkley and Von Miller. I already know what that looks like.
See, I don't consume, I think, the NFL. Like, I am here, like, give me fucking Mahomes, week 1 Browns. Like, that's what I'm into.
I'm here for that,
Justin
too.
Herbert. Like, I don't care about any, until you're relevant, then I pay attention.
Trevor Lawrence was the number 1 pick in the draft. He's relevant.
I know, and if he's playing the Colts, like, okay, I'll pay attention. Like, you're playing the Texans, I'm sorry, I'm just not. It does nothing for me.
Wow. We fundamentally disagree. Okay, so John would rather watch Teddy Bridgewater and Daniel Jones than one of the greatest quarterback prospects in the history of the league. But maybe that's just the scout in me. I don't know.
No. I don't. I'm just not paying attention to any of them. Like, I'm fascinated by Washington football team Chargers.
All right, let's talk about
I'm fascinated by Chiefs Browns.
Don't jump around. Start with that game. Chargers.
Well, it's like, one thing I think that's crazy this year, and I think it kind of Josh Allen would fall into this too, like with Herbert, though Josh had played more. Those guys kick so much ass in front of nobody. Like, if you watch Josh Allen and Justin Herbert last year, and obviously Herbert was a rookie, so it was really remarkable. You're like, this guy just, these guys might not be Mahomes, but holy shit, they're kind of like that, right? Is it just going to look like that with fans in the stands not being able to hear? I mean, we watched college football all weekend. It is dramatically like, you're going to play Wisconsin, Virginia Tech. Like, it's hard. Washington football team, they think they're going to be pretty good. I bet that place is rocking. Is he just going to go in there and just slice and dice them? Oh, on top of that, their defense is legit. Like, is he just going to be a star? Is it really that easy?
That's the number one question. That I think is one of the best storylines of Week 1. Hey, this video brought to you in part by DraftKings. Sign up with the promo code HAM right now and get in our league. Link is below.
Also, check out our friends at sleepnumber.com/ham. Biggest sale of the year this week, Labor Day, baby. Let's go.
Is like, they don't have to be playing. That's the beauty of what you just said. They don't have to be playing the Bucs or the Rams or some Super Bowl contender for it to be real. Every game they play, just because we've seen, so you can be, I mean, not anybody can be a one-year wonder, quote unquote. Even that's hard. But there's all this talk about Josh Allen. Has he had the best year of his career already? No one's having that conversation with Justin Herbert, but the trajectory he's on, it's so ahead of any schedule, right? Like, if he continues on the trajectory, we're talking about one of the great quarterbacks in the NFL. And we know that he has the physical skills to match it. So this year is like, if he can build off of last year and is even better in a year where there's expectations and there's fans, and that was one of the great benefits for any rookie quarterback that played in 2020. Even though you didn't get the experience of playing in front of fans, you did you did, depending on where you played, but there was just kind of a soft landing, and you got some experience in a way that NFL players don't normally get experience, especially quarterbacks. And it's Brandon Staley. Like, they just hired this guy that they think is some defensive Sean McVay. Well, is he?
Well, he's been a coordinator for 1 year. Coordinator for 1 year.
They've got this gem, right? They've got this gem in Justin Herbert. And if any available coach would have been crazy not to want that job, and some unavailable coaches should have wanted that job. And they went with a guy that maybe nobody else would have hired last year as their head coach. Maybe somebody else.
I think he got some other interviejust, but you're right. He probably wouldn't have gotten an offer.
Maybe the Eagles took a massive swing. They took a big swing. And it's just awesome. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I'd say you could push back against the swing. I mean, they've historically been a little cheap. I mean, just relative. If he doesn't have other offers,
it could be that they weren't taking a big swing, that they were just being cheap. That's possible. But it's just, if they whatever it is, if they are wrong, are they stunting Justin Herbert, a guy that almost every team in the NFL would trade who they have right now for him?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, to me, the other game, in the morning slate that, obviously, you and I and anyone listening to this are just pretty locked in on I just say Seattle games. I feel like I follow Seattle pretty closely. I was in the car this morning and I heard Fortenbaugh on radio had a good stat about Seattle in one-score games the last several years. They're like 19-6. Like, and clearly you watch them. We talked about it throughout this offseason, right? They went 12-4 last year. But watch them last year. They didn't. 12-4 is a pre-17 games elite record. Like, I'd say 12-4 and above. Like, you were a big time team. They felt much closer to like 10-6. And you hear a stat like that, you're like, okay, I get it. They pull some games out of their ass, and they have. And that's just, I think it's just a defining attribute of Russell. But they are facing, definitely one of the better defenses in the league the last couple of years in the Colts, and then factoring in Carson Wentz. Like, that is a sweet Week 1 game. I mean, just on paper, and the moment the schedule came out, like Seattle Colts Week 1 morning, like, I'm in.
And then it lost some luster when we thought Wentz was going to miss the first month of the season. But now that he's back, what's interesting about the Colts, I think, is that everything you just said about Seattle is kind of historically the position that Phillip Rivers has been in, and he goes to the Colts, and the Colts look like a Phillip Rivers team last year. I mean, Wentz has been kind of like that too, where he just ends up in some really weird games in the afternoon on a Saturday, the way that Phillip always was in San Diego. Wentz has got some weird tendencies. We spent a lot of time talking about him and whether or not he'd be worth trading for. This is his shot, right? This is his best shot.
Yeah.
He won't get a better shot than this one to resurrect his career with this roster that's good, coaching staff. I mean, the whole thing. Like, nobody in the league believes in Carson Wentz more than Frank Reich does. So if Frank were to ever give up on
the
him,
Colts, just the Colts in general, like, they're kind of all in on him, right? I mean, It's just they're tied at the hip. Like, if he succeeds, they will have success. Yeah. Obviously, when any of your players, but I mean, just the nature of the way his career is played out. And to me, like, it's just, I guess, because the NFC West plays the AFC South this year. Cardinals-Titans, pretty good opening game too. Like, I mean, that's, at Tennessee, the Titans just going to kick their ass. Todd Downing, a guy that, years ago, let's face it, he was a terrible offensive coordinator. Like, it was just, I do believe as an offensive coordinator, clearly you get better with time, right? You just have experience. You know what you're doing. Like, if you talk to Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur would tell you 3 years ago, I'm much better than I am. I'm better now. I do think you're kind of born would be the wrong word, but like your coach, once you get the shot, you either kind of have the instincts to be a play caller or you don't. Now you can improve, but like, I just remember watching him going, this doesn't have a feel for calling
it'd be
plays.
interesting to find out how many guys to look back who failed as a coordinator and then succeeded as a coordinator in their next opportunity.
So he has, 3 horses, right? Legitimate horses: Henry, AJ, and Julio, against the Cardinals, who I just think have immense pressure on them. Just the number 1 overall pick. I think anything less than the playoffs, everyone's going to get fired. And all of a sudden, if you're the Niners, you get the Lions week 1. You wouldn't mind seeing the Colts and Titans take care of business.
Yeah.
Like, do you view the Colts and Titans both as playoff teams? They've been basically
Yes.
the last several years.
Yep.
Right? They'll be right in the mix.
It would be disappointing for them. Obviously it's disappointing for anybody, but it would be a failure for them to not make the playoffs. That's a better way to put it.
Now you could argue that like both those games, they're at Tennessee, at Indy, so is it that bad of a loss for either one of those teams? It's not that crazy.
Yeah, we're just talking about big stuff. Like, that's a storyline. Like, that's particularly for the Niners, where the division, you feel like we'll come down to one game. Jets at Panthers. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but Zach Wilson's fascinating. He was he was in Vegas last night, Saturday night, and Sam Darnold is playing against the team that just traded him to the Panthers, so they just picked Zach Wilson over him. That game could end up looking worse than like I would expect. Like, I could get jacked up for that game and then watch it and go like, all right, click. But anyway,
wait, Allegiant Stadium had a college football game.
That was where BYU Arizona played. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yep.
That is pretty sweet. And he was there.
Yep.
That's a pretty big deal for them.
Steelers Bills.
Just have a starting quarterback.
You mean for BYU or for Allegiant Stadium?
Yeah, remember we talked about it last year. Like, just have a starting quarterback in the league is a big deal for a program. Steelers Bills.
Easy
one. Yeah, that's, to me, Steelers Bills Browns Chiefs just feel big. Those are just those. We got like playoff games week 1.
How about Packers Saints? Packers on the road. That game feels a little different because it's in New Orleans, right? Miami at New England.
What's the afternoon slate? Packers Saints, Broncos Giants, Miami New England.
That's
the greatest. I guess Chiefs Browns.
Yeah, I would say there's 3 really interesting afternoon games. Browns Chiefs is like, could the Browns just win week 1? Beat the Chiefs?
Yeah, well, I think Arrowhead is a tough place to play. That place probably going nuts.
And then Miami New England's really interesting. Mac Jones, who you told me was what did Rob Ninkovich say?
He was teaching Cam Newton the playbook this offseason. He was teaching Cam Newton the playbook,
Gotcha.
The Patriots playbook.
Apparently didn't do a good enough job. I've never heard of that. It's one thing if you came like it was your college coach got hired and like you were Joe Burrow and Joe Brady drafted you and then you come in and you're teaching other quarterbacks, but not when like that quarterback was there before you running an offense.
Well,
but he wasn't running.
The thing that I thought is, was the offense. What did they actually run last year? Right? What were they really running? Did they bust out like the playbook with Tom's face on the front and hand it to both guys?
Cam's like, wait,
what
are these
like
plays?
happened.
I thought were these the same coaches from last year?
Yeah.
Josh, what is this?
I know.
Bears. Bears Rams on Sunday night.
That's a good one.
We see Justin Fields by the third quarter.
So I think the way we're looking at it, NFC West wise, it feels like the Rams are going to win. The Niners obviously heavy favorites. Then if one of those 2 teams win, that's a big win for either Seattle or Arizona, right? You beat the Colts on the road or you beat Tennessee on the road, like that would be big wins. Like the Niners aren't going to get any credit for their win. Obviously, we'll talk about if they were to lose, it'd be devastating. Clearly, the Rams. People think the Rams are going to kill the Bears. Right? They're going to think they're going to kill. Like if you just ask a random NFL fan, people think the Bears aren't going to be good. I've talked to some people who just. I know that like Sando did this article ranking the NFC teams. They were near the bottom. Like they're. I think people in the league think that they could go like 5 wins. You know Jason Peters, who's 39 years old, who was unemployed up till 2 weeks ago. They signed. He's their starting left tackle. Like they just signed him, and boom, he started starting left. Like their offensive line. Yeah, Andy Dalton, the over/under on him making it to week 2 healthy is probably not that high.
Well, it's such a tough spot because Justin Fields obviously would be a better option behind a bad line on one hand, but on the other hand, you go, okay, we're putting our rookie in because our line sucks. That's not a great spot to put a rookie quarterback. As much as you think Justin Fields could be the guy, like I do get if you think our line sucks. Like, do I want to put Justin Fields behind that right away? Whereas at least Andy kind of knows where the ball's supposed to go and maybe can get rid of it quickly. But at some point, you're right. Like they may not have a choice.
It's tough. It's tough. This week 1 schedule. I'd give it like a B+. I mean, it's not just remarkable, but it's week 1, so it's probably actually an A- just because it's interesting. Well, but we'll talk about that game, I think, on Sunday.
Monday Night Football, John? You trying to get away without getting the Ravens Raiders?
No, because we'll get into that on Sunday, right?
Okay. It's just
we'll give it. Yeah,
like I love that game.
We'll talk about it for sure. I know. I'll takes.
Why are you trying to put it off?
Takes. Well, because we're gonna talk. I'm not gonna blow my load on this one yet.
All right. Well, I'm excited for that game at least. So I'm ready.
That is an excellent game.
Derek Carr hasn't played. I mean, it's Ruggs. It's a new defense. It's Lamar. Monday Night Football.